till end of January. And best wishes to everybody. We just thought we should start on a positive note, considering that January is such a difficult, challenging month, financially, emotionally, and everything else, physically as well, as much as a lot of us took a little break, but we get back into things and it's hectic. So we thought we'd just give the two ladies, Colleen and Julia, thank you very much for making time to help us through this, to take us through positive intelligence. And so we look forward to the session. Can I just please ask everyone to be on mute? And the session will be recorded, and any questions will be taken at the end. So thank you very much. Over to you, Julia and Colleen. You can just start by introducing yourself and then get into the show. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks so much, Safira, and good morning to everyone here. Thank you so much for devoting an hour of your precious time at this time of the year and the month to find out more about becoming more self-aware and how to help reduce that anxiety and the stress and the conflict that I think some of us might already be feeling at this time of the year, while at the same time being able to boost your mental well-being and grow your personal development and perhaps even boost your leadership excellence. So we look forward to sharing that with you today. And it will be Colleen and myself as your... I hear some talking in the background.
Yeah, sorry, Julia. I did mute all the microphones. You probably found they thought they muted it and they're unmuted. Guys, please, if you can, keep your microphones on mute, please.
I wondered if perhaps people couldn't see me or hear me. So as you know, it's Colleen and myself on your screens this morning. And my friend and co-presenter Colleen is a leadership development coach. She runs a regenerative coaching consultancy called Vuselela Davis, and she is a great believer in bringing joy and authentic human-based leadership practice to organizations. And some of you might already know me, Julia. I founded a communications consultancy called The Circular Stage, and I'm also dedicated to helping people to take on a more sustainability-based approach to life and to business, and to reconnect with nature and develop the mindset and the tools needed to promote a thriving people and planet-based friendly future. So that's us in a nutshell. And we'd just like to take a moment now to acknowledge that many of us might at the moment be having to hold space for light and hope in a time of darkness and despair in some cases. We realize that there's a lot going on in our country and certainly in our world. And we hope that today's session can help us all find the inner capabilities and peace to move forward with open, loving, and compassionate hearts and minds. So we just keep in mind some of the troubles that are going on in the world at the moment, and we hold space for that. Right, let's get on to that question you've all been asking. What is this positive intelligence thing? Well, it's often abbreviated to PQ, and positive intelligence is a framework developed by a guy called Shazad Shamin. He's a fascinating guy. And it's gained significant traction in the world and a lot of interest. And in fact, a large number of respected coaches, authors, and business leaders have acknowledged its effectiveness and validated its credibility. Why? Well, because it's not only been proven to be effective, but it's also firmly rooted in scientific research. And I know that a lot of you here are scientists or training to become scientists, cosmetic scientists. So these fields are less about cosmetics and more about cognitive psychology, positive psychology, and neuroscience, which means it's not based on wishful thinking or anecdotal evidence. It's based on rigorous scientific studies that have been used to explore the intricacies of the human brain and human behavior. So we're talking about the human brain here. Let's have a closer look. And luckily, we don't need to perform any kind of surgery. We have the recent advances in functional MRI technology to thank because that has enabled scientists to pinpoint the regions in the brain that are involved in producing our different thoughts, emotions, and feelings. And they've identified the neural functions involved with the activation of our self-sabotaging negative emotions and our positive life-affirming emotions too. So the negative emotions that tend to arise when we're faced with a challenge originate in the brainstem, the limbic system, and parts of the left brain. And this is the source of our fight, flight, or freeze response. These regions are responsible for much of our stress, anxiety, self-doubt, anger, shame, guilt, frustration, and our chattering mind. These survival-based responses are only helpful generally for a second, as they alert us sometimes to dangers or issues. But if we stay in these negative emotions for a long time or for an extended period, it hurts our ability to think and see clearly and to choose the most impactful response to the situation. So this is the territory of the judge and the saboteurs, and we'll get to those in due course. Our positive emotions, on the other hand, come from an entirely different part of our brain, the middle prefrontal cortex, the empathy circuitry, and parts of the right brain. It's here that our positive or our thrive emotions are generated as we deal with life's challenges. And these emotions include things like empathy, compassion, gratitude, curiosity, the joy of being creative, and calm, clear-headed action, which is generally what we need. This region of the brain is wired for creativity and big picture awareness of what is important and what is the best course of action to take in any situation. And this is the territory of the sage. I'll tell you more about the sage later. So activating the thrive part of the brain actually also helps to release endorphins that counter the negative impacts of stress-induced cortisol. So that's really interesting. So enough about our brains. I know that Bridget probably would have sent you guys a link to take an online saboteur assessment before today's talk. Do not stress if you didn't have a chance to take it in advance. You can easily take it after today's session, and we can resend the link if you need it. Some of you may have taken that test and hopefully received your results and read the results and found some interesting things about what your top saboteurs might be in your life and how that could impact your daily life. And I assure you, we're not going to ask you to share those results with us today, unless you'd like to ask us some questions about it at the end, which you are very welcome to. So now I'm going to pass over to my dear colleague, Colleen, and she is going to take us through a little bit more about our judge and our saboteurs. Over to you, Colleen.
Thanks so much, Julia. And you did that so well. I keep learning more as I hear it again, and it's so interesting because for many people, when they get those saboteur assessments, they go, "That's me." The problem is that there are about 8 billion people in the world, and everyone has a judge voice, and they also have the same thoughts that anyone with that saboteur has, because these voices were actually created to protect us when we were younger in our childhood. We created them because we didn't understand the adult world, and they were created so that we could thrive and survive in a world we didn't understand. But now that we're adults and we're reacting in the same way we learned to react as children, it's stopping us from being successful in this world. Also, the saboteurs could have been created by a traumatic event or amplified by a traumatic event or experience later on in life. I wanted to share that with you because it means that the judge uses our unique talents and gifts that they twist and hijack to create the saboteurs. The saboteurs don't come from out of nowhere. It is who you are that gets shifted to protect you. You can almost see them as sneaky agents. They're working on the premise that if we can judge ourselves or judge others or judge a situation, we will avoid stepping out confidently in the world. And that means we will be safe. But it also stops us from experiencing life in the fullest. So we're not going to go into detail of every saboteur. If you have taken the saboteur assessment, it actually has a space where it goes into detail. What I'm going to do is, in my experience as a positive intelligence certified coach, I have taken different, I'm going to say clients, but different people, and I have amalgamated them and taken saboteurs and created personas. So you are able to actually see what it could look like. And if it resonates with you, this is no judgment. There's no space of judgment here. This is just exposing words that 8 billion people share. All right? So I'm not going to start with Brad. Yes? Brad is a successful product developer who's always rescuing his colleagues and doing their work for them, although he also tends to procrastinate and misses deadlines. Most often, he's dramatic, temperamental, and withdrawn. If we could step inside his thoughts, we would hear, "No one understands me. I am uniquely disadvantaged, and terrible things always happen to me. I wish someone would rescue me from this dreary mess. If I get into conflict with others, I might lose my connection with them, and I would rather give in to someone else than to create a scene. And it bothers me when people don't care or notice about what I've done for them. They are selfish and ungrateful. If I don't rescue people, who will?" And as a result of these thought patterns, Brad gets stuck in a judgment spiral and cannot connect to joy and happiness. He internalizes his resentment and finds that he can get attention through sulking and being sullen. And this results in people either feeling frustrated and being pushed away, or they become guilty that they can't put more than a plaster on Brad's continuous pain. If you look at, just go back up to Brad, you will see that the saboteur voices you are hearing there is victim, avoider, and pleaser. Now let's go to Lindy. On the other hand, Lindy is a leader, has been in charge of her team for the past 5 years, and her team never misses a deadline. But they are exhausted, and most are quietly looking for a new job. Lindy tends to be irritable and uses sarcasm to get things done. She's highly critical of her team and herself, yet is highly sensitive to criticism. And she works overtime to make up for the sloppiness of others. She is constantly waiting for bad things to happen and is suspicious of what others are doing because they mess up. She feels better when she uses procedures and policies and sticks to them. She keeps herself busy, escaping from unpleasant feelings by moving from one task to another. And she is constantly anxious, which drains the energy of her team. If we could step into her thoughts, we would hear, "Right is right and wrong is wrong, and I hate mistakes. If you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. If I make a mistake, I'm afraid that everyone is going to attack me. I want to trust people, but I find myself suspicious of their motives. This isn't fulfilling. Why can't everyone else keep up with me? So let's just pause there. And what the voices you heard there is of a stickler, hypervigilant, and restless voice. Now let's move to Benita. Benita is a beauty consultant and is always helping people. She doesn't express what she needs from others, and people feel obligated to help her because of everything she does for everyone, whether they like it or not. She needs constant reassurance and can come across as needy. When she's pushed to her limit, though, she becomes confrontational, willful, and a straight talker, pushing the people in her team to their limits. She comes alive when achieving the impossible, and if criticized and misunderstood, she tends to pout, sulk, and be temperamental. If we could hear her thoughts, we would hear, to be a good person, I should put the needs of others in front of my own. It bothers me when people don't notice or appreciate what I do for them. They can be so selfish and ungrateful. I can get anyone to like me. If I work hard enough, I should and can control the situation, so it goes in my way. I am what I feel. No one understands me, and I wish someone would just rescue me from this dreary mess. If we pause and look, the voices we're hearing there are pleaser, controller, and victim. Now let's move on to Alex. Alex is a marketing manager. He has an intense and active mind, sometimes coming across as arrogant. He's very private and doesn't let people into his deeper feelings. When he's concentrating, he loses track of time. He's skeptical of anything that is not proved and will actively debate with anyone to prove his point. He's insecure, but hides it behind a positive image, and he's goal-oriented and works all the time. In a group, he is self-promoting and keeps people at a safe distance. He is methodical, punctual, and a perfectionist. He can be irritable, tense, opinionated, and sarcastic, and he's highly critical of himself and others, working overtime to make up for the mistakes of others, and is also highly sensitive to criticism. If we could hear his thoughts, we would hear, many people are so irrational and sloppy in their thoughts. What I value most is knowledge, understanding, and insight. Self-worth is connected to mastering knowledge. Feelings are distracting and irrelevant. I must be the best I can be. If I can't be outstanding, I won't bother. Emotions get in the way of performance. Focus on thinking and action. I am worthy only as long as I'm successful and others think well of me. Right is right, wrong is wrong. If you can't do it perfectly, don't do it. And I need to be more organized and methodical than others in order for things to get done. I hate mistakes. So I hope you can see there. Well, let's just pause for a moment and see that's the voices there are slightly different. That's hyper-rational, hyperachiever, and stickler. Any negative emotions such as guilt, blame, shame, criticism, cynicism are an indication that you're being hijacked by the judge and saboteurs and are not in control. When we're triggered in this state, we're unable to see clearly and to respond with empathy, curiosity, creativity, or experience that laser-focused action that we often need to perform. If you look at these two parts of the brain, a way of looking at that is when you are in with the saboteurs, it's conditional love. I will only be able to accept you if. You will only be able to accept me if. Whereas if we're able to shift to our prefrontal cortex where the sage is, that is where you have unconditional love, and we are able to have that empathy, curiosity, and creativity. You may have heard yourself in one of those people that I presented. I'd like to just pause here for a minute. Please, if you are able and willing, just take a deep breath with me. And now another one. Just as you're taking deep breaths, just notice, which muscles are you using? As you breathe out, just drop your shoulders. Take another deep breath. Fill your lungs full with oxygen and energy, and just take that last breath. And now I'm going to hand you back to Julia.
Thank you, Colleen. Right, so we've spent the last little while in the territory of the judge and the saboteurs, and I don't know if you agree with me, but it's not a very pleasant place to be. Unfortunately, a lot of us spend a lot of time sometimes in that territory, and results in what we're seeing in the workplace and in life, with people burning out, people being anxious, their mental well-being suffering. So what we are proposing today is that we engage the sage. We move to the other side of the brain, and we're going to show you in a little while exactly how we do that. But in the meantime, let me explain a little bit more about the sage. I told you that it resides in a particular part of our brain, and that part of our brain is associated with what we've talked about: positive emotions, peace and calm, clear-headed focus. It just sounds like a miracle. Creativity and big picture thinking. It can be envisaged as our inner wisdom, the calm center of our mind. So when we recognize that we have experienced a negative emotion and we've been triggered by our saboteur, just like Colleen was explaining to us with her personas and the different characters, we can learn this technique to quickly shift from the negative saboteur perspective to the positive sage perspective. When we do that, we're actually doing something physical. And it's not really just something mental, but we're actually learning to redirect and reroute the impulses along our nerves to tap into a different part of the brain, moving from the one region to the other region. And we are creating new neural pathways, which is in a way reteaching our brain how to react in these situations, which I think is brilliant. This helps us choose whether we want to stay in the negativity or to move to the sage perspective, which enables us to then manage our stress, reduce our anxiety, and find inner tranquility. This sage perspective, also from a work perspective, allows us to focus and to enhance our productivity, to be more innovative and better at problem solving and at artistic expression. It allows us to see a big picture, the broader context, and allows us to make strategic decisions and set meaningful goals. So it's a wonderful place to be. Another great thing about the sage perspective is that it encourages us to view every situation, no matter how good or bad, as a gift or an opportunity. So I'm going to show you now an example of that, because it might seem a bit impossible to some of us. How can a bad situation ever be seen as a gift or an opportunity? Right. So we're going to bring our little actors and personas back onto the stage, and we're going to start with Brad. Brad is stuck in horrific bumper-to-bumper traffic. Lights are out, load shedding, and he starts to feel the victim coming on. So if he were to engage the sage, he could stop that victim saboteur in its tracks and choose rather to see the situation as a gift or an opportunity. He could choose to rather sit calmly in the traffic and listen to that time management podcast that he's been dying to listen to for ages now, but hasn't had the opportunity. He can sit in the traffic while he's stuck, listen to that, and actually give himself the gift of time and end up arriving at work instead of angry and feeling sorry for himself. He'll feel empowered, and he's learned some great new skills while sitting in the car. That's the sage perspective. What about Lindy? Poor old Lindy falls, breaks her arm. She can't finish that important presentation for that prospective new client. What is she going to do? Is she going to freak out, cancel the meeting? There's no ways anyone is going to be able to do that work as well as she would, control freak that she is. Or she could silence her stickler saboteur, engage the sage perspective, and instead create an amazing opportunity for her deputy to step up and develop his skills and confidence at compiling presentations. And while she learns the important skill of trusting her team and delegating more, she ends up boosting everyone's morale and boosting their energy levels and their will to stay in the job with her. That's turning it into a gift or an opportunity. What about our friend Benita here? Benita has been invited on a dream weekend away with her husband to some gorgeous tropical island. However, her boss has hinted about coming into the office over the weekend to help her colleagues do the stock take. Now, Benita could succumb to her pleaser saboteur and tell her husband, I'm sorry, I have to miss the weekend because I've got to please my boss. Or she could see the situation as a gift where she finally finds the courage to say no and to set realistic boundaries with her boss in a calm and unemotional way, engaging the sage. And our friend Alex here, well, Alex has a horrible argument with his boyfriend who accuses him of being a workaholic, who never shares his feelings, and who always puts work ahead of their relationship. And instead of listening and succumbing to his hyper-rational saboteur and trying to justify his behavior with facts or blame his boyfriend for everything, Alex engages the sage and sees the confrontation as a gift of self-awareness and self-compassion. He takes the opportunity to book some sessions with the therapist and manages to overcome the trauma of a difficult childhood and at the same time to save the relationship with his boyfriend. Seems easy, but those are just some examples of engaging the sage perspective. And Colleen, can you answer this question? Can we always say this is bad or this is good? Which perspective is true?
As with what we've just shown you, the saboteurs will tell you that every situation is bad. Our perception of situation as bad or a gift is really very subjective. It depends on our beliefs, past experiences, and the lens through which we view that situation. If we are stuck in that saboteur perspective where everything is bad, it will limit us, often causing pain, fear, and negativity. The sage perspective, on the other hand, empowers us to find solutions, creativity, growth, and resilience. While situations themselves may not inherently be good or bad, our response to them can make all the difference. So embracing and developing a sage perspective allows us to approach challenges with a growth mindset. And I just want to add a caveat here. The one thing in which this is irrelevant is in grief. Grief is not bad, good. Grief is an all-body experience. Grief is not a saboteur. Grief is not a judge. Grief is something that every human being has to work through, and it affects all parts of your brain. Julia, I'll let you continue.
Thanks, Colleen. Right. I hazard a guess, and you're all on mute, so you can't answer, but that some of you have either been to gym already this morning, or maybe gone for a run, or done a little yoga session, or some of you are planning to do it later today. Why? Because a lot of you value something called physical fitness, right? And a lot of you realize, and there's no judgment here, but that if you're planning to get fitter or stronger, you need to exercise regularly. And that's physical fitness. What we're talking about here is a very similar concept, but we call it mental fitness. So this concept of positive intelligence, or PQ, is all about mental fitness. And you can imagine that given today's environment that we all work and live in, it's fast changing, there's burnout, there's lots of uncertainty, there's job uncertainty, we don't know what's happening with our planet, there's all sorts of geopolitical trauma and crisis going on, and there are lots and lots of mental health challenges. In these situations, in particular, it's more important than ever for us all to become mentally fit. We actually can measure your mental fitness. It's called your PQ, or positive intelligence quotient, and that sounds similar to your EQ, or your emotional quotient, or your IQ, your intellectual quotient, very much the same kind of concept. But the more mentally fit you are, the higher your PQ. So, in a nutshell, mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive mindset rather than a negative mindset. And obviously, as you can imagine, and we've alluded to already, it affects your performance, your well-being, your peace of mind, definitely your relationships, and many other things. And we feel it when we're not mentally fit. So just as if you decide to go running up a hill full of stairs and you're not physically fit, you're going to start feeling it. You're going to pant, your lungs are going to burn, you're going to gasp, you're going to wish you hadn't done it, your legs are going to ache. We also suffer when we go through life without being mentally fit. And it's actually a calculation of the ratio of how often we respond with negative emotions versus positive emotions. But we're not going to go into that calculation. What I can tell you, however, is that there has been plenty of research done and surveys completed where they have tracked the success and efficacy of the PQ methodology. And this particular survey of over 2,000 people showed that in just 6 weeks of mental fitness practice, these are the kind of improvements that you can see. And I'm not going to go through all of them because I know you're all pretty good at reading. But those are good figures. If you got these on a report card, I think you'd be pleased. And this is within corporate settings, teams, communities, you name it, professional setting. It's got a really good track record. And we can share with you, if you're ever interested, some case studies that have been done in particular industries, including the cosmetics and toiletries industry. So this is not just a theoretical concept. It is a practical approach that produces real world benefits. Right. So up until now, we haven't really shared with you much about how do we switch from saboteur to sage? And we're going to start that explanation now. And Colleen is going to help us by starting to take us through what EQ Rep is all about and why the operating system is so simple but so effective. Over to you, Colleen.
Thank you. Thank you. That is a very good question of how. How do we exactly do it? How do we increase our mental fitness? How do we effortlessly switch from saboteur to sage? Is it even possible, especially with people who are saying, I've tried so often and it hasn't worked? As Julia said, we're going to show you just how simple it is. The secret is it's simple and easy. It's a practice. It's a daily practice, and we call it PQ reps. Just like we need to go to the gym and do that repeated reps or repetitive exercises over and over for that muscle memory, if we expect to build muscle and get stronger, this is why we have to practice our PQ reps until we're able to get the optimal mental fitness and are strong enough to handle any situation that comes our way. The operating system is really simple. If you're feeling a negative emotion, stop. I know that sounds strange, but stop. You're recognizing that you're in saboteur mode. Remember that any anxiety, fear, blame, shame, no, not fear, but that guilt, that anxiety, that shame, those come from your saboteurs. If you're able to do some PQ reps, they quieten your saboteur and just give you that little split second to choose which neural pathway you want to go down. Do you want to go down to that reptilian brain where the saboteurs are, or shift to the prefrontal cortex where you activate the sage? When you assume the sage perspective, every problem can be converted into a gift and opportunity. And therefore, it means that we can look at problems and the places we find ourselves with empathy, with curiosity, creativity, and calm, clear-headed action. So I would like to actually, with your permission, go through a quick little exercise with you. I would like you to imagine you're in a negative situation that has triggered your judge and perhaps other saboteurs. Think about a situation maybe today. Perhaps don't think about something that is very big and could cause you a lot of anxiety, fear, shame, just something small. Allow it to just trigger you and give you a feeling of negative emotions like the anger, anxiety, envy, or sadness. It can be relevant to you in your life at home, your work, or elsewhere. Picture that in your mind. How does it feel? How does it feel in your body? Perhaps your heart is racing. Perhaps you're breathing a little bit quicker. You have a bit of tightness in your chest. Are you feeling a bit agitated? Now let's practice together something called a PQ rep. I know most of you have not got your cameras on. So if you are willing, I'd like you to take, before that, a rep. The reps that I'm going to take you through will encompass touch, sight, listening, or breathing. Each one will at least help you to shift. So firstly, I'd like you to take the finger of one hand against the finger of the other. Gently, just touch it. Gentler, slowly. Can you feel the ridges? Can you feel the heat? Now put the fingers of the other hand on there. Can you feel it? Palm to palm. What is the feeling? Be curious. Now I'd like you to just take that deep breath again. And as you're breathing, notice, are you using your chest or are you using your abdomen to take those deep breaths? Are your shoulders dropped or are they quite high up? Notice the seat of where you are sitting. Notice your feet. How many toes do you have? Can you feel them? Can you feel each one? Notice how they are resting on the ground. Listen to some noise, some sound that's far away. What can you hear? What is something closer? What is something even closer? Maybe you can hear your breathing as you take deep breaths in and out. And lastly, I'd like you to look at me. Look at something that you notice about me. Be curious. Maybe it's my glasses. Notice something about them. Right. And now I encourage you to take a breath and come back into that space. Check in with yourself. How are you feeling now? Before, you may have felt a bit of anxiety, anger, resentment, fear, guilt. And now, are you feeling in that same space? So what the PQ reps do is they interrupt and disrupt your brain from going straight into those negative thought patterns that you've created and you have lived with for many years. And it allows you to shift into a space of empathy, of strategy, of creativity and innovation. The PQ gives you the choice. It's based on what works best with you. It's not often that you will do all of them. I was just giving you an example. Some people, it works best when they listen. Some people when they see. Some people when they feel. As soon as you start feeling triggered or hear the judge or saboteur starting to speak to you, and they can be very loud, you can focus on your breathing or something visual in front of you, the sound around you, your seat in your chair. Choose whatever works for you, and don't forget to breathe. And remember, just like if you were training for a black belt, if you're a white belt, you can't expect yourself to be as advanced. So just let's go back to the gym example. If you are only on 1 kilogram weights, you can't bench press 100 kilograms. You will hurt yourself. And that's the same thing with this. It's a practice. If you have got very strong judge voices, doing a little PQ now and then is not going to do a lot. And that's why what we're introducing to you is a practice. Right, Julia.
Thanks, Colleen. That made a lot of sense. And I can honestly say that since I've been practicing PQ reps, it really has the most amazing effect. Obviously, the more often you do it, the better the effect. And I do get lazy, I have to say. Sometimes my day runs away with me. But often my saboteurs catch me in the middle of the night and I can't sleep. I don't know if any of you have this issue. And my head is racing and all these negative thoughts are flooding through, and there's no way. My heart's pumping, my adrenaline's racing. And I just have to remind myself, and I've been doing this for a long time, that even I need to say, stop. And I do a PQ rep. And for me, this rubbing of the fingers, because it's just my fingers are always there, funnily enough, they're always there with me. I rub my fingers together and it calms me amazingly. And I find within a couple of minutes, I can fall asleep. So, but you know, for every person, it's different. And it comes down to practice and finding what works for you, and reconnecting with the body, getting out of this crazy headspace and the head chatter. And the minute you then reconnect with your senses, you can stop that negative pattern and switch over to the sage perspective. So Colleen and I would like you now to just spend a minute. I'm going to play some beautiful music, hopefully it plays, and we'd like you to spend just a minute contemplating your own life, and even planning ahead, and I don't know, use this time however you like, but you might think, what have I got in the rest of my day? Where could I potentially be triggered by a saboteur? And I'm almost going to preempt that and think, when somebody really irritates me and I want to scream, I'm going to remind myself to do a PQ rep. But now's your time. Do whatever you like in this time. I hope you can hear this lovely music. And you can close your eyes and just think about what you've heard today, just for a minute. Right. Sorry to end that lovely music so suddenly. I'm not a very good DJ. Okay, I hope that gave you the opportunity to just digest some of the stuff you've heard today. Some of you might be familiar with it, some might be brand new. But now is the time. And I'm actually going to, I think, no, I'm just going to leave the slide on. And I can't see hands, but it's an ideal time to raise your hand and turn on your camera, I think, as well. If you have any questions or there's something in your saboteur assessment you'd like to discuss, or if you found today's session really interesting, or in fact you thought it was all nonsense, now's the time. So Bridget and Colleen, if you can see hands coming up, won't you please
let me have a look here. I'm also just seeing, or you can unmute your microphone. Okay, there is a hand up. Let me just have a looky here. It's my hand that's up. No, it's Tiffany's hand up.
Yes, Bridget.
Yeah. You can just unmute your microphone.
Ladies, I found that quite insightful. I know I battle with the PQ because I have to keep telling myself to try and relax because, yeah, like Julia said, your day just runs away with you. And I experience that every day. So it's something that I will be trying to put into my schedule. Just take the 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever and just chill.
Easier said than done, though.
It is definitely.
I think it's very much about becoming, it's forming a new habit. To consciously think that you need to change or stop, because we react so quickly, particularly in this day and age, and even on email before we've even thought that far.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with that. I think a lot of it is self-work, being conscious of, as you say, your saboteurs and your triggers, because at least if you know what your triggers are, then you can think, oh, I need to take a progressive step and maybe react differently. Because we're all in survival mode, I think, at the moment, particularly being in work and stress, and with all the cortisol levels being so high. But as you said, I think the mental health is critical. I appreciate that all the members have taken an hour or 40 minutes to spend time with us. I must say that minute, it seemed really long, or 40 seconds, because we are in such a stressed environment. You know, everybody's on the go, finish this, finish that, move on to the next thing. And I think it is very pertinent to take time, even if you're getting up early, to just align your day and maybe put that into a thought process. Are there any other questions for Julia and
Bridget,
Colleen?
I was wondering, perhaps if everyone could just put in the chat one thing they're taking away from the session.
That's a good idea.
That would be
Awesome.
wonderful to hear what people are feeling and thinking.
Yeah, please, guys, if you can.
And if people want to know more, they can, with pleasure, contact Julia. There is a program that they can take that goes even deep. It's an 8-week program that people can do. But if you want to hear more, please get hold of us and we'll be happy to share that. But please just put in the chat one word, even okay, let's change it, because everyone's like, no, I have to put what I think. One word of what you're feeling now. Just describe how you're feeling now. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think that's with the breathing and being, you know, bringing the senses together, which I think we lose sight of, particularly when you're sitting in front of these computers all day.
Exactly. And you'll notice that's what I did with the breathing in between. After dealing with all those negative saboteurs, I got us to take a breath. And perhaps sometimes in your meetings, have a breath just in between. It allows you to get centered again. Thank you. I see that.
Yeah,
Inspired,
I think I'm also reading
hopeful, calmer,
lovely.
positive.
Yeah. I think we needed it for the morning start. Thank you, ladies. You get so wrapped up in the day and the traffic and as you say, the drama of life. It's very easy to get involved in those aspects and focus on those. But I think, like you had said, Colleen and Julia, it's about consciously thinking, okay, and not be naive to the fact that life is hard and there are challenges. It's how you decide to react to it and perceive it. You know, there are challenges, but you know, if you're going to react, there will be a reaction. So
I see that there's joy. I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Always happy
everybody.
to hear people experiencing joy, but also the calmness. As you said, Bridget, we rush everything and we feel that. And I hope by listening to the personas, you recognize some of those thought patterns and you now understand that that is not you. It is a thought pattern that you can work on to shift.
No, I appreciate that. It doesn't, it just looks like there's comments, so I think that's a positive feedback that you've covered all of the aspects. And I think if anybody's interested in the program, they'll probably reach out to myself and then we will make the recording available. And I think if anybody wanted a copy of the PDF, you can obtain it from the office, but the recording will be available once I've loaded it onto the live platform.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming and being so open to trying something new. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it is just a very powerful little tool. And because it is so simple and very surreptitious, you could do it under the boardroom table during a difficult presentation. That's the joy of it, really. It's just remembering to do it before you get triggered or as you're getting triggered. And it really is, it's small, simple, but so effective, and it can bring you so much calm and joy in your life. So we're very open. If you'd like us to come together, talk to some of your staff, we're very open to do that as well. It's hugely powerful and empowers people to take control of their own emotions and then their own actions and their own destiny, really. So it's hugely powerful, and we would love to create that positive impact this year. Colleen and I are enormous change makers, and it gives us huge joy to bring joy to everybody else. So do hit us up if you can.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you for sharing the passion. I mean, you can see this is your passion and your drive. It's quite fulfilling, I think, to see people that are following a different path. You know, we're obviously all in the corporate world, yeah. It's really uplifting to see a different path to maybe take. So I appreciate that. A few people are asking about the program on WhatsApp. Sorry, that was the beeps in the background there. Is there a website they can just go to, Julia, or can I just pop it through on an email?
Just pop it to me on email, and then depending what it is that people are interested in, we can then send the details of either links or other information, and we can go from there. We can work through you or directly with people, and we're easy. And
just to add to that is people who took the saboteur assessment, you went to the Positive Intelligence website, and that will give you a lot of information. It is American based. And so we offer the program here, not in dollars. So if you want any information, please, with pleasure, you can find either us on LinkedIn as well. But I think if going through you, Bridget, then it means that we can give specific and we know who we're talking to, and we can craft that for you and this community who does such important work. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, on that lovely note, thank you, everybody, and off to work we go. Ho, ho, ho. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Engage.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Julia and Colleen.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.